The billionaire heiress, a young woman named Isabella, was known throughout the country. She was graceful, beautiful, and the only daughter of one of the most powerful men in the business world. Magazines adored her, society envied her, and strangers assumed her life was nothing less than perfect. Yet the truth is, perfection is often the greatest mask of pain. Working in the mansion was a woman named Mariah, a black nanny in her early 40s with a heart bigger than her years of struggle. She was the kind of woman who always smiled through her pain, who carried her own scars quietly, and who gave everything to the people she cared for. Mariah had been hired originally to look after Isabella during her teenage years, not because Isabella was a child, but because her mother had passed away and her father was rarely home. Over time, Mariah became more than just a nanny. She was a confidant, a second mother, and the only person in that house who truly saw Isabella not as an heiress, but as a human being. It was past midnight when Mariah went upstairs to check on Isabella. The young woman had complained of being tired earlier, retreating to her room. As Mariah quietly opened the door, the moonlight slipped through the tall windows, casting a silver glow across the white sheets of the enormous bed. But what she saw made her heart stop. Isabella's silk pajamas, once a pale cream, were stained with spots of red. Blood, not just a few specks, but a trail across her side, marking her body like a cry for help. For a moment, Mariah froze, her mind racing. Where had this blood come from? Was Isabella hurt? She rushed to her side, whispering her name, shaking her gently. Isabella stirred, her face pale, her eyes heavy with something more than sleep. "I'm fine," she murmured, trying to pull the sheets over herself. But Mariah knew better. She had raised children, cared for the sick, and she knew what fear looked like in someone's eyes. Isabella wasn't fine. "Child, don't you lie to me," Mariah said softly, holding her hand. "Tell me what's going on." At first, Isabella tried to brush it off, claiming it was nothing, maybe a cut, maybe an accident. But the truth was too heavy to stay hidden. With trembling hands, she finally pulled the sheets back, revealing faint bruises along her arms and a wound near her ribs that looked like it hadn't been properly treated. Mariah's breath caught. "Who did this to you?" she asked, her voice shaking but steady enough to show she was serious. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. She looked away, biting her lip, struggling between silence and confession. Finally, she whispered, "Please, don't tell anyone. Especially not my father." Mariah was stunned. Why would she not want her own father to know? What could possibly terrify the daughter of one of the richest men alive into hiding injuries like these? In the following days, Mariah kept watch over Isabella like a hawk. She changed her bandages, sat by her bedside, and cooked her meals. But what troubled her more was not the physical wound, it was the way Isabella flinched whenever footsteps echoed down the long hallways, the way she locked her door at night, and the way her laughter seemed forced whenever anyone else was around. One evening, as they sat in Isabella's room, the truth slowly poured out. Between sobs, Isabella admitted that the life the world envied was not the life she lived. Her father, the billionaire everyone admired, was a man with a temper darker than midnight. In public, he was charming, a gentleman who donated to charities and gave grand speeches about success. But behind closed doors, he was controlling, cold, and at times, cruel. He demanded perfection from his daughter, pressuring her to carry the family's reputation without a single flaw, and whenever she failed to meet his impossible expectations, his anger left marks on her body and soul. Mariah felt her heart break into pieces. She had always suspected something was wrong but never imagined the extent of it. She thought back to all the nights Isabella would retreat into silence, the times she avoided family dinners, the moments her eyes seemed distant even when surrounded by friends. It all made sense now. "Baby," Mariah whispered, holding her face gently, "no amount of money or power should make you live in fear. You are worth more than his anger." Isabella clung to her, tears soaking her shoulder. It was the first time she had said the truth aloud, and it felt like chains breaking. But the struggle was far from over. For weeks, Mariah wrestled with what to do. Should she confront the billionaire? Should she go to the authorities? She knew the risks. Men with his wealth and influence often silenced problems before they ever reached the public. If she spoke up, not only Isabella but Mariah herself could lose everything. Yet silence meant Isabella's suffering would continue. One night, after another heated argument echoed through the mansion, Mariah made a decision. She began documenting everything: photographs of the bruises, notes of Isabella's words, even late-night recordings of her crying. She didn't know how far she'd have to go, but she wanted the truth ready, no matter what. The breaking point came during a charity gala. Isabella, dressed in a gown worth more than some people's homes, stood beside her father, cameras flashing from every direction. To the world, she looked like a queen, smiling gracefully. But Mariah, watching from the side, noticed the stiffness in her movements, the way she winced slightly when her father placed his hand on her shoulder. And when Isabella turned just enough, Mariah caught sight of fresh bruises hidden under her pearl necklace. Something inside Mariah snapped. Enough was enough. That night, when they returned to the mansion, she pulled Isabella aside. "We cannot keep hiding," she said firmly. "This ends tonight." Isabella trembled, torn between fear and hope. But the strength in Mariah's eyes gave her courage. For once, she didn't feel alone. Together, they reached out to a trusted lawyer, someone Mariah knew from her church, a man who had fought for women in difficult cases before. At first, Isabella hesitated to speak, but with Mariah by her side, she shared everything. Every bruise, every scar, every word of cruelty. The lawyer listened, documenting carefully. He knew this case would shake the world, but he also knew Isabella deserved freedom. What followed was a storm no one in high society saw coming. The heiress's testimony, supported by Mariah's evidence, went to court. At first, the billionaire father tried to use his influence to bury the case, but the media got hold of it, and suddenly the world was watching. For the first time, people saw beyond the polished image of power and wealth. They saw the truth of a young woman's suffering. Through it all, Mariah stood firm beside Isabella. She was not her blood family, but she was her chosen family. She attended every hearing, held her hand during every painful recounting, and shielded her from the whispers of society. And when the final verdict came, when the court ordered protection for Isabella and began stripping her father of control, Mariah knew their fight had been worth it. Isabella, though scarred, began to heal. With Mariah's guidance, she started therapy, began pursuing her own passions instead of living under her father's shadow, and even used her voice to raise awareness about hidden abuse among the wealthy. She spoke publicly, not as a victim, but as a survivor who wanted to give strength to others trapped in silence. As for Mariah, she never once asked for recognition. When journalists praised her as a hero, she simply said, "I did what any mother would do." But deep inside, Isabella knew the truth. Without Mariah, she might never have found the courage to break free. The mansion that once held secrets now stood as a reminder of resilience. And though the world had been stunned by the revelations, what mattered most was that Isabella was finally safe, finally seen, and finally free to live not as a billionaire heiress, but as a woman with her own voice. And the woman who had made it possible, the nanny who was once overlooked, had become the very heart of her new beginning. This story reminds us that sometimes family isn't about blood, it's about who stands beside you when the world tries to break you. It shows us that behind every perfect picture, there might be a hidden battle. And it teaches us that courage, no matter how quiet, can change a life forever. So if this story touched you, remember to share it, because you never know who might need the reminder that they are not alone.